So far we've talked about getting ready for a disaster, what to do while it's happening, and what we should do immediately following the disaster. What's next, Sarah?
Making a plan for the immediate future.
Yes, that's right. Let's talk about the things you can do after a disaster to start getting back to normal.
What is the very first thing I should do?
Well, the first thing you have to do after a disaster is take care of what's most valuable. Do you know what that is?
Me.
Yes. You have to think of yourself first and make sure that you are okay. If you have any minor injuries like a cut, treat yourself using items from your first aid kit. Or if your injuries are more severe, you may need to get medical help.
Once I know I'm safe, then what should I do?
Remember the small things, like putting on a sweater if you're cold. Now you need to start thinking about where you will stay. This depends a lot on the type of disaster and how badly your home has been damaged.
So I need to make sure my home is safe as well.
That's right. Remember, we've already checked for things that could cause immediate problems. Now we can take a second look to make sure that we can remain safely in our homes.
You mean like holes in the floor or in the roof?
Exactly. If you see anything unsafe or you're not sure if it's safe, it's best to leave your home and get help from one of the people on your emergency contact list.
But if my home isn't damaged, I'm okay, right?
Not always. Even if your home isn't damaged, you may still have other problems.
Like what?
Sometimes after a disaster, services you're used to having, like water, sewer, and electricity, may not be working.
I never thought about that before.
That's okay. That's why we took the time to put together a disaster kit, to make sure you have what you need.
I'll have food and water in my emergency kit.
That's right, but we only want to use that when we have nothing else. Where else can you get food?
I can just go to the store.
Stores may be closed, and the ATMs may not be working. You don't want to wait until the disaster to get your supplies.
I'll probably have food in my cupboards.
Very good. That's the first place you should check. You should always try to have 3 to 7 days worth of food in the house if possible.
But what if the electricity is out? How will I cook?
That's a good question. You can always cook on a portable stove or grill if you have one. Food in the refrigerator and foods that age quickly should be eaten right away. If your food has been soaked by floodwaters, it needs to be thrown out.
What about canned foods?
Canned foods will be okay, but be sure to clean off the can before opening it.
What do I do about the toilets if the sewage isn't working?
You can use a plastic bag over the toilet or over a bucket. Then you can just close up the bag and dispose of it afterwards.
That's a great idea. If I don't have electricity, how will I know what's going on?
A battery-powered radio is the best way to hear any news from the officials. That's why you have one in your disaster kit. You should listen to the radio to make sure it's safe to stay where you are and for information like where to get extra food and water. While we're talking about electrical power, you should also make sure that you turn off all your electrical devices. That way none of them will be damaged when the power comes back on.
If I turn everything off, how will I know when the electricity is working again?
Leave one light switched on so that when the power comes back on, you will know right away.
What if my electrical devices are wet?
If they are wet, it means they are also damaged and unsafe to operate, so don't use them.
What about all of the mess? What do I do about that?
You can start cleaning and tidying up as usual, but be careful. Use rubber gloves to clean up spills. If you become dizzy or something doesn't smell right, you need to leave the area right away.
There could be broken glass too.
That's right. Use a dust mask and your work gloves when you're cleaning up your home. You may also need professional help when you're cleaning. Most people do.
What do you mean?
Well, you may need a handyman to come over and repair any earthquake damage or to fix broken windows.
That's true.
A flood can cause mold, which can make you sick. You'll need a professional to help you with that.
Okay, what if I can't stay in my home? What do I do if I do need to leave?
Your first choice is always to try to get help from one of your emergency contacts. If you can't do that, you may have to go to a shelter.
I've seen shelters on TV. What are they really like?
The Red Cross provides shelters after a disaster. The locations are announced over the radio. A shelter is normally a large room filled with cots. It could be at a school, a hall, or even a church.
What should I take with me to a shelter?
Take your disaster kit with you. Shelters have a limited supply of emergency items like blankets and personal hygiene products. Make sure you take your identification, a copy of your doctor's prescriptions, and any medications you may need. Leave a note for your family or friends saying where you are going.
What happens when I get to the shelter?
It's just like checking into a motel. You'll meet with a shelter worker who will take your name and other information. Be sure to tell them about your prescriptions, injuries, or any other special needs you may have.
Where will I sleep?
Staff will show you where your cot is and give you blankets. They'll also tell you the rules of the shelter and give you information about mealtimes. A shelter can seem frightening. You won't have any privacy because other people will be in cots beside you. You may feel nervous and alone. Remember, everyone else in the shelter will feel the same way.
What if I get scared or need help?
The shelter workers are there to help you. If you have any questions or need any help, just ask them.
Will they feed me at a shelter?
Yes, however, it may not be what you're used to. Even if you don't like it, you need to eat and drink so that you stay healthy. If you are on a special diet, be sure to let the shelter staff know so they can try to help.
Can I shower at a shelter?
It depends on whether the water is working. If it isn't, you may not be able to shower for several days. If there are showers, you may need to wait in line or have to shower at a specific time. A lot of people will be waiting, so you will need to be patient. By the way, you may also need to use portable toilets and wait in line to use them.
That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. When can I leave the shelter?
Shelter workers will let you know when it's safe for you to return home. If you can't go home, they will try and make sure you get help from your emergency contact list.
Suppose I can't get anyone to come and get me right away.
Don't be surprised if it takes a while. Try not to worry because the Red Cross will not ask you to leave the shelter until you have someplace safe to go. You may be moved to another shelter or be provided with temporary housing, but you will not be thrown out onto the street.
That's a relief.
So what have we learned, Sarah?
That the best place to stay is my own home, as long as it's safe. If not, I should try to reach someone on my emergency contact list. If that doesn't work, I should go to a shelter.
That's right.
Thanks.